So, lads, we just knew it was going to happen, didn't we? We just knew it was going to happen because it is dumb. Like, there are dumb people all around. There are dumb people in the media. And you know what? The story is the story. The story is the story. Like, the Lynx were 3-0 without Nafisa Collier. They lost a game with Fee. There's no talk about them being better without Fee. The Aces were winning games without Angel Wilson. There was no talk about them being better without Angel Wilson. Yeah, the Fever have won a cup game, which again is bigger than the league game. I admit that it's bigger than a regular season game, but at the end of the day, it doesn't count towards their record. And an imploding Aces team, like imploding is the best way to describe them, and apparently, that means they're better without Caitlin. If you guys agreed this is BS, subscribe. We are trying to hit 52.6k by the end of the day. But let's take a listen. This is Carolyn Peck. This is on ESPN. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing, lads?
You were at that game just now. Look, the Fever have been on a tear. They've won 2 in a row, a 25-point blowout of the Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup final. And
the Fever have been on a tear. They've won 2 in a row. Against, in fairness, an imploding team and a lottery team. And by the way, we all know how much better the Wings are with or without Enrique. With Enrique, the only reason we won that game is because they put Enrique on.
And then 27 against the Aces in this one. And both of those games without Caitlin Clark. How is Indiana getting this done right now?
Look, I think that Indiana is even more dangerous when Caitlin Clark doesn't play because she's...
What? The Indiana Fever have had games where they've scored in the 50s without Caitlin Clark this year. They've had games where they've scored in the 50s. Like the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark. They had 81 last night. They had 81. They are averaging, other than against the Wings who don't run back on defense. And by the way, this is the Nalissa Smith Wings, the Enrique Wings. This is the bad Wings. They put up 75 on the pathetic Sparks. With Caitlin Clark, they had 94. And by the way, the only reason they lost to the Aces with Caitlin Clark was because Stephanie White kept doing her BS. We're slowing the game down instead of we're trying to go win by 30. When we get a bit of a lead early, we're trying to win by 30. It's a change in mentality the team has had. And it's a change in tactics, it's a change in philosophy that they're trying to blitz teams and not just win games. And that they can do that with or without Caitlin Clark. But they're clearly not more dangerous. Why? Because they average 10 points per game less when she doesn't play. 10. It's not something small. It is literally 10 points per game.
She's a ball-dominant guard. The ball's in her hands a lot, so you know what you need to try to take away. But when you look at Indiana now, they've got so many weapons. And Kelsey Mitchell is playing out of her mind. Aaliyah Boston. I talked to Stephanie White before the game. She said in year 1, Aaliyah Boston was back to the basket. Year 2, two-man game. Year 3, they're using her as a decision maker.
What is she talking about? What is she talking about? She's acting like people weren't saying she was the female Jokic post-Olympic break. You're acting like that wasn't one of the huge changes that Christy Sides made. They're like, this is the evolution of Aaliyah Boston. We want Aaliyah Boston to do this. She was doing that with Caitlin Clark. What are we talking about? Like, that was the post-Olympic break Aaliyah Boston. We saw that a year ago.
And so when you have a point guard like Kelsey Mitchell.
A point guard like Kelsey Mitchell, what is she on about?
And Ari McDonald making plays on the perimeter and a post like Aaliyah Boston. I'm going to tell you, Indiana, they are a threat. And specifically on the defensive end, Stephanie is so pleased with the intensity that they're bringing defensively with their length, their switches. I mean, they've wreaked havoc on their last 2 opponents.
And by the way, like, people are talking about the defense. The only thing is that the Indiana Fever have showed up for 4 quarters on defense. Like, when the Indiana Fever played the Aces with Caitlin Clark, they were fantastic defensively in the first half. Held the Aces to 36 points. And they were fantastic defensively till about halfway through. They have just played terrible. I'm just going to show you guys what the Indiana Fever have done. in their games with and without Caitlin Clark. Without Caitlin Clark, they've played 2 good defensive games in a row. 2 good defense games because, lads, the Indiana Fever gave 30 in a second and 26 in a third after building up a 22-point lead. They played no defense against the Wings at all. They started off the game great on defense. They played none after that. They did not hold them to that many points. But like, where is it? The Indiana Fever against the Seattle Storm. The Seattle Storm just started hitting shots in garbage time. They did. They got to 86 points. Most of that was in the fourth quarter. 28 in the fourth quarter. They realistically would have held them below 80, which is what you want to do against the Storm. Yes, the Aces were bad and the Indiana Fever were exceptional defense yesterday. But like, to act like Caitlin Clark has not been at least a Kelsey Mitchell level defender is just lying. It's just lying. Like, Kelsey Mitchell, if you look at the Aces game down the stretch, if you look at the Aces game, the one they lost, Kelsey literally let Jewel Lloyd draw in like three open layups because she just kept jumping and giving her the lane. They are similar level defenders. When we're talking about defense, Kelsey and Caitlin are very similar levels. The problem is that the two of them together is an issue. And that is why I'm not that high on bringing in Kelsey Mitchell again next year if you can get a Jackie Young. Purely because I feel like there are players that can give you 90% of what Kelsey gives you on offense, but are significantly better defenders. And I do think you need an elite defensive 2-guard to play beside Caitlin Clark, because while I think Caitlin Clark can play in a system, I think Caitlin Clark is a good screen navigator. She's good at refusing screens. I think she's good at guarding like small forwards. I think she does a really good job on the Ryan Howards of the world. She doesn't have the foot speed. We saw it against the Valkyries. Carla Lake just burned her. She does not have the foot speed to guard point guards. So there are situations where she kind of has to do that. And Kelsey Mitchell's not a good enough defender either to be locked down. So at the end of the day, it is genuinely it's a crazy one. It is a crazy one. And I think it's one of the dumbest arguments I've heard. Like, the Indiana Fever, I literally said this, and I was like, the Indiana Fever have still not beaten a team above .500 in the regular season since 2022. And people are literally like, oh, well, they've lost to teams below 500 with Caitlin Clark this year. I'm like, no, they haven't. Technically, now the Aces are now below 500 because the Fever beat them last night. But while Caitlin Clark, when they played the Aces were above 500. And even if you want to say, oh, whatever about that, the Fever have not lost to a team outside the playoffs without Caitlin Clark. And by the way, the Fever haven't even been close. Caitlin Clark has played almost entirely against good teams. So, like, if you look at the Indiana Fever, they played with Caitlin Clark. They played the Sun, beat them by 20. Without Caitlin Clark, they lost to the Sun. Caitlin Clark hasn't played against the Sparks, but they lost to the Sparks. Caitlin Clark with the Sky, well, they won by 30 with and without her. They beat the Wings without Caitlin Clark. With the Mystics, twice without Caitlin Clark. Once they lost, once they won. Aces, once they lost, once they won. But you look at it here. They beat the Storm. They beat the Dream. And they beat the Liberty, all without Caitlin Clark. Or say, all with Caitlin Clark. With Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's only actually played, I just realized, against non-playoff teams. Caitlin Clark has literally played one singular game. One singular game against a team below 500. And their record is still better. So, against lottery teams. The Indiana Fever have played 2. She's 2-0. 7, 8. So the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark, she's played 9 games. 7 of them have been against playoff teams. She's missed, or she played 8 games. No, she's missed 8 games. 6 of them have been against non-playoff teams, and they have a better record with Caitlin Clark than without Caitlin Clark. I think that just sums it up. That sums up. They're 500 without Caitlin Clark. They're 5-4 with Caitlin Clark. That just sums it all up. The dumbest argument I've ever seen. But anyway, I'll see you guys.